guys, we're reviewing the 2013 Kia Optima SX Limited. Dave, this seems to have all the bells and whistles.
Yeah, this debuted at the 2012 LA Auto Show, and it's got everything and anything you can think of at a great price. Coming up on this episode, we'll go under the hood to talk about this turbocharged engine. We'll take it for a spin and tell you about ride and handling.
And finally, we'll let you know sort of what we actually think of the car on the Everyman Driver ownership scale.
Everyman Driver starts now.
The power plant in the new Optima SX is a 2-liter direct injection 4-cylinder turbo. It's good for 274 horsepower with 269 foot-pounds of torque. Now, that is a lot in a car this size, Dave. It's actually quite quick.
It is quick, and miles per gallon, at least estimated, is 22 in the city and 34 on the highway. I put a lot of miles on this car this week, about 285 miles. So I've been on the road quite a bit. Average is 24.7 in mixed driving, so definitely on the lower end. But of course, you have that turbocharged engine, which, you know, I'm going a little fast every once in a while.
Yeah.
But what surprises me is that this is a smaller engine of the 3 options for the Optima.
Yeah.
The bigger engines get better gas mileage, 24 and 34, and then mixed driving right there around 28, I think.
Well, they're all 3 or 4 cylinders, but the lower 2 trim levels have a 2.4-liter naturally aspirated 4. And even though it's, you know, the displacement is a little bigger, this is a much more high-performance engine, way bigger horsepower and torque numbers, so it doesn't surprise me at all that the gas mileage is worse. One thing that is funny, this engine is clearly biased on, essentially on my left side. There's no question that this thing is really mounted over here, and obviously Kia has a reason for it. My guess would be, you know, weight balance and distribution, but it does throw you for a loop when you first take a look at it.
And you mentioned weight, and I was going to say this for our ride and handling segment, but this car, same dimensions as the other trim levels, same dimensions, height, weight, everything in the side, but this car is actually 150 pounds heavier than the 2 lower models, which is kind of strange, and you think it's because of all the extra technology gadgets.
Absolutely. People don't realize that on cars these days, all these safety features and you know, all of the technology features are great, but it adds a ton of weight to the car, and that ultimately affects gas mileage, it affects handling, it affects wear and tear, you know, tire life, brake life. So when considering all these features, I would say really figure out what you need and just stick with that.
That may be contributing to the lower gas mileage on this model. Who knows? It's going to take you to experiment a little bit on the road. So let's go ahead and take this for a ride. It's time to talk ride and handling in the SX, and boy, this is a sporty ride, no doubt about it. A lot of get up and go, and I'm sure that has to do with the turbo, but steering is so nice. It's easy to work with, and it has a lot to do with it being electronic.
Yeah, you know, the electronic steering's not for everybody, and definitely takes some getting used to, but in a car like this, it really feels nice. The engine, I was thinking, you know, because it's a Kia, and it does have a lot of power, but it's a turbo, that it would have a lot of turbo leg. Power band in the engine is actually fairly smooth. Steering's good. Ride is really pretty nice. I mean, you know, certainly I would say the Accord or Passat or Malibu aren't any better, maybe slightly, but overall, you know, this is every bit as fast as those cars, if not faster. And the cabin in general is just a really nice place to be.
Yeah, the midsize sedan offering by Kia really is a competitive vehicle when you have so many others that do well and have done well over time. So let's talk about the interior. Again, very nice. This has some extra luxury packages associated with it, namely the premium touring package as well as the technology package. We'll talk about the limited in a little bit, but all the nice gadgets that you would like to have are loaded in this vehicle. The navigation system, all the heated seats and options there. How do you like this, how it's laid out?
Well, in general, I really like it. It doesn't feel as cheap as I thought it would feel. You know, being a Kia, automatically I expected to get in and have everything feel cheap. It really doesn't. Everything feels really pretty solid. The navigation system's really good. The processor speed's fast. I don't feel like there's any lag like you get on certain systems. So overall, it feels really nice. I know I'm starting to sound like the gauge Nazi. Honestly, the only part of this dash and the interior that I don't like is the gauge cluster. And the reason why is there's this big screen in the middle and then the two gauges on the sides, and I just feel like especially the speedometer needs to be a little more prominent. I feel like I'm always looking down straight at the screen in the middle, which does give good things like gas mileage and other information, but ultimately, you know, you want to see what your speed is, I guess, first and foremost. But besides that, it's great. The panoramic roof is awesome. I don't know if you can see on camera how much light is allowed into this cabin, but
yeah,
you almost feel like you're outside. And the seats are comfortable as well. There's good maneuverability and support on them. And even the fake wood, which if anybody's watched this before, usually I hate, they did it nicely in this car because there's just little accents. There's not a ton of it everywhere. There's just a little bit in places, and it's dark enough that it sort of blends in with everything else. So I think it's great.
One thing you'll notice as a driver in the SX, and maybe this is a Kia theme, is how this instrument display is catered to the driver as opposed to the passenger. When you talk about how this is a little bit angled in the cockpit for someone like me driving?
Yeah, well, and oftentimes that's called sort of a cockpit design or a driver-centric design. And definitely the driver's seat is the place to be in this car. But they didn't, in certain like old Acuras, they would actually angle the dash a little too much to where the passenger didn't have a great view of, say, the nav screen or the controls. I feel like this car, they did it just right. It's slightly biased towards the driver, but I can still, as the passenger, I can still see everything, operate the navigation screen, so they did a good job.
All right, leg room and headroom in the back seats of the SX. Very comfortable. This is where your seat is in the driver position.
Yeah.
This is where my seat is, and I got plenty of knee room.
Yeah, I'm shocked. This car doesn't seem that big from the outside. Rear legroom is good. Headroom is decent, not great. However, we've got the panoramic back sunroof here closed. When that's open, that's certainly going to give it more of an airy feeling. But overall, very nice place to be.
Yeah, there's even a bit of an indent above your head, where to give you a little bit more room. And as I mentioned when we were talking about the under the hood, every Optima is the same size regardless of trim level. So this is what you can expect in the LX, EX, and now here the SX.
Overall, this is great back here. I'm really surprised at the room.
Now, if you want some more room, there's a little bit of a bonus back here in the trunk. We'll show you that right here coming up next. Cargo space is ample.
Yeah.
Comparable, not the greatest compared to maybe the Accord or maybe the Passat,
yeah,
but it's still reasonable.
Yeah, I feel like it's as deep, it's just maybe not quite as wide. These wheel wells here intrude into the space a little bit.
Now, here's the fun thing, which some cars you can go in the back seats and pull the seats, fold them down from inside the car, but there are two handles here. This is how you fold the seats back. Pull. From there, I guess we have to go back in the car, but at least that releases it so you can pull the seats down. And now we're talking about more cargo room, which gives you more to put some skis in there or lay some longer items, but it's not necessarily something you're going to do a lot of luggage hauling with.
No, although I do know somebody that hauled an entire mountain bike in the back of one of these cars, so they do have some room.
Not too shabby. The SX trim level also includes standard 18-inch chrome wheels and these really cool looking red brake calipers.
Yeah, also Dave, if you'll look right by your knee there, it's got these chrome accented lower door sills and also a chrome accent along this rear spoiler. And along with a couple of other bits, the limited package really makes this car look sporty but also luxurious.
The MSRP here on the 2013 Kia Optima SX is $26,800. Our tester, which includes the limited, touring, and technology package, just under 35 grand. Alex, this is a very nice car and nicely equipped. So on the Everyman driver ownership scale of 0 to 72 months, how many months would you recommend this 2013 Kia?
Well, this has been probably the hardest car to rate, I think, that we've done so far, simply because what Kia was 5 years ago isn't what Kia is today. It's no longer necessarily an entry-level brand. It's going up against Toyota and Honda and Ford. I really like this car. Would I take it over an Accord? That's really tough. That's really tough. Would I take it over, you know, most of its competition. I honestly don't know, but I do really like this car. I'm gonna give this car 60 months.
Really?
There's not a lot not to like. The sunroofs are awesome. The interior doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like a Kia. This has got a big engine in it that feels good. The car looks good. If you stripped a Kia badge off of this, you would think it was something that was far more prestigious. So I got to swallow my pride on this one and say 60 months. I think it's great.
I think you've convinced me. I was sitting on 48 months. Nothing to really knock the Kia about. I mean, you made some really good points, and especially with all the different added bonuses that you can get, it's still under 35 grand.
Yeah.
And it's sporty, it's sexy, it's luxurious, it's sleek looking, it is fun to drive. 60 months, you convinced me.
Also, for the Everyman Driver Nation out there, if I was buying this car, I would get the SX, where you get the big engine, leave some of the goodies off there, and you can get a 275 horsepower sweet sedan for basically 30 grand. You're still getting a lot of the good aesthetic stuff. Love it.
All right. Hey, that'll do it for this episode of Everyman Driver. Alongside Alex Afreese, I'm Dave Erickson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.